Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is optibotimus coming to you with another video review. And today we're going to be taking a look at the new Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Computron. A gift set that includes 6 Technobots, including the Voyager class Scattershot, Deluxe class Afterburner, the Deluxe class Strafe, which may confuse some people because they've started calling Swoop Strafe, the Deluxe class Lightspeed, Deluxe class Nose Cone, and then you got the Legend class Scrounge, which in the G1 cartoons was kind of partnered with the rest of the Technobots. Now this is the second gift set that we've gotten from Hasbro for the Combiner Wars, the first one being Victorian, and I know collectors such as myself have really been looking forward to this. As part of the Combiner Wars line, we did get a Voyager class Scattershot previously, but that really didn't impress a lot of people. This takes Scattershot and the whole Technobot thing, and in my opinion, really does the character of Computron justice. For the package, as you can see, it's a fairly large box, and you got some really cool art here on the front. And as you can see, it also does include a little mini poster with this art on it as well. On the top here, you have the actual 6 characters that you get in this set. The side right here just has that image. This side, nothing. Bottom, Combiner Wars. And then on the back of it, kind of lifting it up like so. Again, you have the 6 characters here along the side, and then a fully combined image of Computron, which does look absolutely terrific. And as you can see, going sideways, it does make the box fairly big. And it says, of all the Combiner robots, Computron is the most successful at merging the different personalities of his component bots. Computron processes input from each of the Technobots and evaluates all possible outcomes to identify the perfect plan of attack. He's never wrong, but he's rarely fast. Now, Computron, in terms of, everybody asks me who my favorite combiner is, and honestly, this is probably my favorite combiner of all time. He was the smart one, he got his brains, and was actually created by Grimlock, which in of itself is kind of a hilarious plot, but this guy really did turn out great. Now, there is a Takara one that's coming out that does have some differences, and that set I actually do want as well. There are aspects of both of these figures that I really like, and when that Takara one comes out, I'll kind of do a comparison here, but the Hasbro one here really does look really great. The Takara one takes it a little bit further for us collectors, but in terms of a toy and such, this is a terrific figure. So for the packaging on it, that's about it for it. So I guess without further ado, let's get this guy out here and see how cool he actually is. Alright guys, so here we have the Technobots open up and out of their packaging. Now, in addition to everything that you currently see, he also does come with his instructions, obviously. You have them all kind of on one side, then on the back of it, you can see how you combine them, and obviously form Computron. And then you also do get, like with Victorian, you get a little bit of a poster with it, which does look really cool. As you can see, it's pretty big, but you get really nice art of Computron right there. You got Combiner Wars down there. You got nothing on the back of it, but fairly heavy cardstock. And just in general, really cool kind of artistic representation of Computron. I really dig that. But here they are, and first up, this is kind of a new addition to the Technobots, I guess. As I talked about in the G1 comics, Scrounge here actually was part of the team. Now, I really don't care too much about this. This is probably going to go away. I never read the comics or anything, so it doesn't really do too much for me. But this is just, as you can see, a repaint of the Generations, or whatever it is, Cosmos that we got a little while ago. He does feature a new head, and then this is Cybax, I guess, another little partner for him, which is just a repaint of, I think it was called Payload. But you do get this little addition, which actually can attach to Strafe, which is kind of cool, and I'll show that here in a little bit. But you can see fairly nice metallic yellow paint on here. I mean, it's very bright, and it actually looks really very nice. You got some nice red bits on here, some blue for the windows. You got red here for the little thrusters. The little guns down here are red. One thing I would be concerned about is it does look like it's all molded in this yellow plastic, and this is kind of red. Now, one of the gimmicks that, Cosmos had was Payload Kit attach and kind of drag them along, and this is something that comes in handy with Strafe later on in forming kind of his weapon. You attach it like this, but my concern would be over time wearing out the paint on here. Now, it hasn't scraped it or anything just yet, but it is a fairly tight sort of fit, so I would recommend caution when you're doing that. Now, especially if you're going to have it displayed with them kind of on there, it's just a matter of time, I really think, before things start wearing off on here. But in general, it looks really good. I'm not going to, like I said, display my Technobots or Computron or anything like that with Scrounge or Cybax. I just really don't care too much about them. But you do get those guys. Now, transformation on all of these are almost exactly the same that we've seen before. The only one that might be a little bit different, I guess, could be Strafe, but not even really. I mean, because as much of a heavy retool as that is, the engineering is the exact same, so it really doesn't change too much. Now, when I was going through introducing them all in the package section, I actually called this guy Lightspeed. He's not called Lightspeed anymore. For copyright reasons, they've changed his name. His name is now actually Lightsteed, which is kind of silly. As you can see, he does come with his gun. It does seem that it's molded in this red plastic with some nice black paint on there. But this is basically a redeco of Streetwise. I think the head is the exact same. But I think he actually looks pretty good. Now, the Lightspeed or Lightsteed, whatever you want to call him, will be a completely different mold through the Takara release of it. I think they're going to be using like the Sunstreaker mold or something like that, that Lamborghini kind of one. I don't know exactly how I feel about that, if I like this one or if I like the other one. One thing that I will say is that in general, all of these figures do a good job of representing how the G1 toy looked. That appears to be the inspiration for the color that you have, whereas the Takara one is going to have more of that G1 cartoon look. So depending on which version you like, that could heavily influence the decision that you make on whether or not you get this or the Takara one. But for a comparison, here's the G1 version, and as you can see, that's the color that they were basically going for. You got the white section here at the top, you got primarily red here, and you got the white stripe along here. So when people say that, you know, this is not accurate, whereas the Takara one is, you're basically not comparing the proper versions. This Hasbro set does have a really nice G1 toy representation, and as you can see, you basically have, you know, a pretty accurate representation, you know, in terms of the toy form. But I like him. I think that he actually looks pretty good. Like I said, I haven't quite decided on which I'm going to like more. I'll probably make that decision when I actually get the Takara one in hand. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at that nose cone here. Now, as you can see, nose cone is a repaint of Brawl, and what this actually features and utilizes is the actual drill bit that we got with the Bakan Ramhorn. If you remember my review of Ramhorn, I talked about how, like, that's the first kind of use of this drill. This is what it was also intended for. Now, again, the Takara one is going to utilize a heavy repaint of Rook to give us their version of nose cone. And while with the Lightspeed here, I'm kind of on the fence. I really do think that the Takara one of nose cone is probably going to be much better than this. This isn't bad or anything. The mold in general, I'm not a very big fan of. I mean, this definitely has a problem with the waist. It doesn't seem to peg together all that great. It's just not a very solid figure just in general. It's not terrible or anything. It's just definitely fairly weak. And then again, now taking a look at the G1 toy for comparison, you can see where they get a lot of the coloration and things of that nature. You got that nice brown, you got yellow here across the top, you got this canopy section, you got the drill bit on the front and everything. So again, with what Hasbro was doing here, you can see that they're drawing inspiration from the G1 toy. But overall, I mean, it does look pretty good. I mean, I like the nice, you know, Autobot logo. All the paint on all of these is really very, very nice. And I think because we're buying this, you know, as a gift set, they can put a little bit more money into the decos themselves. And I think that, you know, it does a pretty good job of looking good. Up next is Afterbreaker, or as we typically know him as Afterburner, and I got the G1 version right here. But what you have is a retool of the Deluxe Class Groove. Now, Hasbro did eventually release Groove, so we did have that, but the initial release was through Takara, but as you can see, you got a different section here at the top that gives it, you know, that more the Afterburner, Afterbreaker, whatever you want to call them, you know, copyright reasons. But in general, again, really nice looking. I like the green on here. It does give kind of a functional sort of looking motorcycle, but because it kind of has this little swoop thing here, it does a little bit better job of not necessarily looking like a motorcycle. So like with people riding it would look weird. G1 toy wise, again, you can see, I mean, obviously this doesn't have green, but this is the color. You got the orange that carries over very nicely from the G1 version. You got the white section here. You got the white here. I do really like how where they're putting the Autobot logos on these new ones is basically where the instructions told you to put them on the old G1 toys. That's kind of cool. But in general, pretty decent representation of the G1 toy here. And while I don't exactly remember, I think that Lightspeed and Nosecone utilize the same heads as their kind of respective counterparts. I do believe that Afterbreaker here utilizes the head sculpt that was on the Takara version of Groove himself. But we'll take a look at all that here in a little bit. But I do, again, really like the way that this guy looks. You got his weapons that plug in here. You don't have to have him plugged in, but these are the same weapons that we got with, Groove came with. So that's pretty nice. You just got that clear lucent green plastic here and then the kind of cream color painted over it. So in general, like I said, really very nice looking. Obviously, you got the little kickstand down here that you can put out there and still set and have them actually stand. Up next, we're going to take a look at Strafe. And now Strafe here is a heavy retool of Air Raid, replacing a lot of the alternate mode parts that make up the jet here with how Strafe actually looked. This guy really turned out very, very nice. Again, looking at the G1 figure for comparison, you can see where they drew the inspiration, although I got his, put that down there. Come on, rotate that up and back up in there. So you do have that, but again, really very cool looking. Now, one thing that does kind of stink is that of all these figures, Strafe here is the only one that doesn't actually come with a weapon. He's got the guns right here, but they're molded in and those can't actually detach, which is a little unfortunate. But like I said, you got this little peg right here, and you can actually take this and you can put that right in there, and you can, for his arm, create a little bit of a shield. That's the whole purpose of that peg right there, kind of slots into this undersection. So I guess you could kind of say that Scrounge here is his weapon, but it is a little unfortunate that he doesn't come with anything, or at least have like just this section here remolded and then have these guns kind of tab in on the side. I think they could have done that and give us these as actual guns, but I'm happy with it. I think that it turned out pretty good. You can see that he does have that soft rubber for these little tail fin things. That kind of stinks, but the best way to kind of straighten that back out would be to heat it up in like some boiling water and then put it where you want to, kind of let it sit there for a second, stick it in the freezer, let it kind of, freeze in that position. But all in all, I really, really like the way that this guy turned out. He's probably my favorite of all these. And yet again, the Takara one will use a different mold to give us a slightly different Strafe figure. So it really is going to be kind of a battle of which one you think kind of looks the best. Like I was showing, G1 color-wise, in terms of the toys, Hasbro's nailing it here. You got the white body, you got the red wings, you got the little smaller wings that come out here. Obviously, you got the orange for the guns. I even like how you got these little nubs right here that are replicated here as almost like their little guns. I mean, I think it just really does look absolutely terrific on them. Now, the final piece in this whole set is Scattershot. Now, this is the one that I think kind of deviates from the overall toy aesthetic the most out of all of them. But that being said, this is a huge improvement over that Scattershot figure that we got a little bit ago. As you can see, it is the exact same mold, but the coloring on here is vastly, vastly different. Now, for a comparison, here's the G1 version. Where's the top? There we go. And again, this is where you're seeing a bit more of a departure from the G1 toy to the new guy. Coloring just doesn't really match all that well. I do think that the Takara one does a much better job of replicating both the cartoon and the toy. You got like the red and white on here. I mean, the coloring on here looks great. You got the little blue here along the side, really nice Autobot logo right there. And you got a nice blue paint here for the cockpit. It all looks really good. Just by comparison to the toy, it just deviates. And it's kind of weird that they decided to do that. I mean, you got this fairly bright red here. You don't really have that on the G1 toy at all. But I mean, like, look at, very subtle pieces. Like right here, this little strip right along the edge is painted blue. You got that on both sides here. I mean, the paint detail really is fantastic on these. Even, in terms of the robot mode, it all looks really very nice. You got the little skid here that you can slide up. You can also take this is his weapon, and you can still plug that on the bottom right there, and you can do that if you really wanted to. I still think it looks a little bit silly, but you do have the little full wheel thing right down there, so still cool looking. I think that the Takara one absolutely wins in terms of the overall paint scheme, at least here on Scattershot. And then obviously one of the biggest difference that really sets this Hasbro one apart, much like the set that came with Victorian, you get brand new hands and feet. Instead of actually getting the standard Combiner War hands and feet that can be hands or feet, these are specifically just feet, and these are specifically just hands. They can't be used, obviously, as the opposite, but these are all new, and they look really great. You can see you got some, like, thruster detail here. You do have a little bit of an ankle pivot, so you can kind of angle the figure with, you know, kind of a wide stance. It just really did help out Victorian. I know that a lot of people, when they saw this gift set, were really excited about getting just these. People have talked about how they would love to buy, you know, accessory packs to be able to get ones like, you know, Victorian, obviously Computron. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. As you can see with the fist, though, I mean, these are all molded in one piece. But you got like a hole right here where you can have them hold the weapon. You can kind of actually see through there where the fingers kind of come around, but they're just molded in this fist. But I really do think that that's probably one of the best selling points about this entire set. And one of the aspects that I think a lot of collectors were really very happy and kind of hyped up about. But in terms of the vehicle mode, that's it for them. I mean, like I said, there are, you know, some differences between, you know, the base figures, but for the most part, yes, they are repaints and slight retools. But I definitely think that they look really good. And the overall execution of these figures, I really do feel was very nicely implemented by Hasbro. Now, like I talked about, because these are basically just repaints, the transformations are almost exactly the same. Because they utilize the same engineering, the steps don't change really. The only thing that really changes is some of the parts. Like, for example, Strafe, instead of having the nose cone thing here, I mean, that just detaches and lifts back just like all the other aerial bots did. So because of that, I am going to go ahead and skip the transformation on these. But if you do need any help or anything like that, I would just suggest going to my Transformers Combiner Wars playlist and finding any video that you may need to kind of help with any questions you may have. So all that being said, we're going to go from the Technobots looking like this to looking like this. And while the vehicle modes do a really good job of homaging the original G1 toys, the robot modes here, the colors, while are still kind of there, deviate a little bit more. And I think that's another aspect of the Takara one that really does shine and look just a little bit better for collectors. Now, starting out first here with Scrounge, like I said, basically you just have a repaint, very bright, like metallic yellow, like I talked about. You do have a new head sculpt on there, which is very reminiscent of his G1 self, getting it to come in, getting it to focus on the actual face. You can see that in terms of that head sculpt, a real nice representation of how it looked in the comics. But other than that, you know, the paint job is very bright on this guy. It looks cool. Honestly, I kind of get like a BotCon sort of vibe from this particular figure in terms of the recoloring and new head on here. It's not bad or anything. Like I said, I just don't really have any kind of attachment to Scrounge, so I really don't care about him. And then for the Cybaks here, again, he's a repaint of Payload. You got that yellow color, you got a red face there. You can also take him and put him into a gun form. You just take this section, collapse this in like that, kind of rotate this, get that little handle section out. It's a little bit tricky to do, so I'm going to pull out a little piece here to kind of wedge it up. So you can do that for his gun. I guess if you really wanted to, you can use this gun for Strafe, kind of like how you use this entire get up for the shield kind of thing. So you do still have that gun thing, and then just sliding that right back down. Again, these are two little pieces I don't particularly care too much about. They're just really, I mean, I don't have much of an attachment to them, so they're just kind of pointless, if you ask me. And that's where I was kind of saying, like, this is something that I think is very obscure, and I feel something like the Transformer Collector Club would do. Now for Lightspeed or Lightsteed, again, really cool look on him. One thing that I will say is that this little mushroom peg here is a little bit looser than I would like. I can probably fix that with some Pledge Future Shine or something, but you can see that he does feature the same head sculpt that First Aid had, or I'm sorry, Streetwise. But in terms of how he looks compared to his G1 self, this does get a much different kind of look for him than what we're going to even get with the Takara one. The Takara one, like I said, utilizes that Sunstreaker kind of mold, and I think it looks a little bit better in terms of a robot mode. I don't think this looks bad by any stretch of the imagination. I do believe that you get a new head sculpt, but in terms of an overall look, I do still like the guy here. But again, that new head sculpt for the Takara one, just I think is a little bit better. I don't think that robot mode, either of them really kind of capture that full kind of likeness that the G1 toy had, but I do think the Takara one gets the colors just a little bit better, and obviously does give them a newer head that kind of matches the G1 head a little bit more. For nose cone here, again, I just am not a huge fan of this mold in general. The waist here actually is a little bit looser than even what it was on Ramhorn. I mean, you can see very floppy right here. You kind of have to set it back there and kind of push things and just kind of sit it there. But it really isn't all that good, to be totally honest. You can see that the head sculpt is the same as Brawl's. You do have that drill bit accessory that Ramhorn came with the Transformer Collector Club. But again, coloring, it just deviates a little bit too much from the G1 toy. This does kind of get a little bit different. I mean, obviously, you know, the head and then the middle piece here being orange is fairly similar. You got the brown and the yellows and stuff, so it's not that bad. But I do think that using Rook and heavily retooling that figure like Takara is planning on doing is going to be a better just overall look for him. Now, I do think he comes with a new head as well. I'm just, like I said, not a very big fan of this particular mold. So I think anything that uses this is probably going to suffer. But paint-wise, again, really very nice on it. You got a nice little tiny Autobot logo right there. Some nice silver paint here on his forearms, the crotch, and everything. So in general, decent looking, but I just, like I said, think that the mold suffers. Next up, we're going to take a look at the Afterbreaker or Afterburner, whatever you want to call them. And again, this is another case where the G1 toy kind of resembles it, but I think the Takara one will do a better job of kind of giving an overall better look. I think like the arms are all the same color and everything, but they're going for the toy look here with Hasbro. Takara's going more that cartoon look. Now, what you can actually do, because this rotates, and I've seen, you know, the Takara one actually shows it where it's like this. You can do that on this as well, and you can kind of create that look a little bit more. Because they utilize the same mold between this and the Takara one, you can do that here as well. So it's just a matter of personal preference. But you got a nice head sculpt here. You got the green light piping coming through. Very, very nice green light piping. Personally, though, I think that this looks a little bit better. You can kind of rotate this around and get that a little closer if you want to. I like rotating it for the combined mode. But you can get that like alongside his back here, and I mean, like I said, I think that that's how the actual Takara one shows it. So it just rotates right here to kind of create that same kind of look. It does give him a bit of a backpack. I mean, you can kind of create a smaller backpack if you have it like that, but then you got this big giant section that comes up. I don't know. I really do think that the overall look like this, and you can leave that up a little bit higher if you want to. I just think that the overall look like that is a better look for this particular character. Toy-wise, you know, you do have the similarities here, but again, I just think that Takara is going to do a better job of giving us that kind of cartoon look. Again, I'm saying that, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm kind of coming down on these, because these are good toys, regardless. I think they do look really very cool. It's just, you know, as a collector, for me, I want that more, you know, cartoon accurate look. Now, some people might like that, the toy accurate look, so I mean, this is definitely something that would appeal to them. Now, with Strafe here, you do get a new head for that, and you can kind of see what they were going with here. By leaving these guns kind of up here, you kind of have that sort of recreation right there. Now, again, Takara is going to give us a different one, and one thing that I've noticed is that the Takara one, and I'm trying to see, that doesn't look like it detaches or anything, but the Takara one actually looks like this is rotated around, and these are facing down on the bottom. So I don't know how they actually are going to incorporate that, but it is kind of interesting. I'm curious to see how they're going to do it. But the overall look for this does look pretty good. I really like the little rose color that they have on here. Again, the Takara one's going to do a much nicer job with the head sculpt. You're going to have this section here be white, much like this. The arms are all going to be white, and then the arms on it are going to have the little wings like this. So again, much better representation, I think, of just that kind of character. It looks pretty good when you compare them to the toys here. I'm sounding like a broken record, and I guess I kind of am, because we're taking a look at 5 figures all at once. But that's just kind of the general idea. Now, with Scattershot here, again, real cool look for him. I'm going to set that guy back there. The best aspect of this, bringing in the G1 version, you can see that they did a much nicer job of capturing that actual head sculpt. Again, color-wise, it just doesn't seem to work all that well. I mean, you got the very nice maroon color through there. You got the little pinkish kind of color, which is nicely replicated here in some of the aspects of it. But I don't get the bright red color. You got some nice blue there. You got a nice Autobot logo. Just again, doesn't really have that kind of toy-esque kind of look. That this is just another case of where it just kind of deviates from the overall toy aesthetic. It's like they decided that they're going to make the vehicle modes exclusively replicate how the toys look and not so much how the robot modes look, which is kind of unfortunate. But the best part about this, though, is definitely the head. That's a really nice head sculpt. It really does add, you know, a uniqueness to this character. But for the robot modes on these guys, that's about it for it. Now, like I said, I am still planning on getting the Takara version, so I'll do a comparison. There are some pictures out there, but a lot of stock images of even this really weren't all that good. Like, for example, Afterburner here, or Afterbreaker, the orange really didn't look orange. It still looked kind of pinkish. But as you can see, it is definitely orange. So what that means is you guys are just going to have to sit and wait for my review of the Takara one before you make up your minds. But for the robot modes, that's about it for it. The best part about this guy, though, is Computron. Now again, because the transformations are all exactly the same, and because this is that Scramble City sort of mentality, the arms can be legs, the legs can be arms, they're interchangeable. But I really do like the cartoon look, so I go with the kind of cartoon sort of configuration. But because we have seen the transformation into those limbs, I am going to skip it. And again, if you need any help, my playlist for Combiner War figures is available to you. But that being said, using some of that good old-fashioned movie magic, we're going to go from the Technobots looking like this to looking like this in its combined form of Computron. And this guy absolutely looks terrific. Now, the biggest difference between this and that Takara one is probably going to come down to the hands and the feet. Hasbro gives us these brand new custom hands and feet, which look terrific on them. I mean, the hands are proper size, the feet are nice and big and bulky. They really do help round things out and make them look great. But unfortunately, that Takara one, despite having so much good put into the individual bot modes, it's lacking a little bit in terms of Computron here. The hands and feet that the Takara one come with are those standard Combiner War hands and feet. You know, the ones that can be hands or feet. So that's a definite negative, if you ask me. Now, one thing that we'll talk about here with Nose Cone, you can have the actual drill section there, or what they actually kind of show you doing is this section right here, and I've never noticed this before, but you can actually take this and wedge this in, and it actually stays in there fairly decently. So that's how they actually show you doing it, which does look a little bit better, I think. You know, it kind of fills things out. And then the other thing that I like doing is, if you remember with Superion, you could plug those guns on the side. Unfortunately, you know, Strafe doesn't come with any of those guns, but an Afterbreaker does, and you could probably take these. You can't really put them here. I mean, I guess you could do it like there. If you wanted to. Let me see how that kind of looks. I mean, you can put it here and it kind of fills it out, but yeah, this side it's a little bit too long. You can't really get it in there, so you kind of have to. I mean, this side you can actually do it. Let me see here. Yeah, that side you can kind of do it. This side you really can't do it all that well. I guess you could if you put the little green section facing forward, but you could take this and you could put it here, which I think looks pretty good as well. And that kind of fills out those thighs a little bit more and gives them a little bit more bulk. I mean, it does look a little bit different. Then you can take Lightspeed's gun, I guess, and you can come around here and you got the little holes on that side there. You can put that there if you really wanted to. So you can store all of his weapons still. But I just think in general, the guy does look really good. Now again, because the Takara one uses the same mold here for Afterbreaker, if you don't like that there, you can rotate this around and you can do that, which, or you can tuck that down like that, which honestly, I think that looks a little bit better. It does give a little bit more of that kind of actual Computron sort of look with the, the wheel section right there. It's all personal preference, though, to be totally honest. So it is what you prefer for your individual look. I don't mind that all that much. You are seeing that he does kind of lean. That really isn't anything to do with the actual ankles. It's just all this other top stuff is kind of heavy, and then my surface here is a little bit rounded. So while it does kind of rock her a little bit, I mean, you can see he stands fairly nicely. One thing that you are noticing, though, is he does have Superion's head. The Takara one will change that. We do get a new head sculpt on there, but that actually doesn't look too bad. Now, setting him there and bringing in the G1 version, again, you can see the similarities between the two. It does look pretty good, and you can see that what they did with the head sculpt nicely, kind of homages that original one. You got the, kind of gold for his eyes, much like you have here. Unfortunately, though, as you can see, he does have a mouth on the original one, whereas that's still just the actual faceplate. Takara is changing that, and they're giving us, an actual mouth on this, and then they're changing these. So they might remold kind of the mouth area, and then obviously all they have to do is swap out these with shorter ones. I mean, literally, it's like they should be about that big. That's about it. So you don't have to cut that much. And if those are too long for you, you could just probably cut those yourself. The other thing that you're going to see is that utilizing a completely different mold for nose cone, the leg is going to look considerably different. But as it is, though, I don't think it really looks bad. This is a good kind of comparison. I think they did a pretty decent job of capturing that aesthetic in the new form from the way that he used to look. And I really am quite happy with it. Now, one final thing, like I was talking about, you got Scrounge here that you can take the little side backs thing and you can put that here. And again, this is kind of weird, but you got a little post right here. And then like I was showing you, got a little rounded section right there that you literally just take this and push that in there like that. And now you have him with a shield kind of thing on his arm, which honestly, it doesn't really look much like a shield. I don't think it's all that cool. I mean, some people will probably like it. I honestly don't care all that much. Like I said, this is kind of pointless for me. But he does look really, really cool. The hands give a real nice look to it. The feet look great. You can rocker those kind of, are those on one joint? No, yeah, okay. You can rocker those out a little bit. You can bend these out. You can kind of position them there, get them kind of standing. I mean, he does look really very cool. Again, my table here, because it's rounded, messes things up. But in general, I mean, look at how cool that looks. I mean, you can get some great looking poses with this guy because of that ankle tilt and just the overall added functionality of that, new joint system down there. I love the way that the guy turned out. I really am very happy. And like I said, I completely intend on getting the Takara one as well, but I really do think that I'm going to mix and match some things. I'll probably take some heads off of different figures and swap them out and put them on other, bodies and things like that. But what I think Hasbro did here is really very cool. Of the different Combiner War figures that we've gotten, and I have liked them, I really did like Superion. Defensor came out really nice. Bruticus looks good. The only one, and Victorian looks really good as well. The only one that I really didn't particularly like very much was Mendoza. But of all the Combiner Wars Combiner figures that I have, honestly, Computron is probably my favorite looking. I just think he looks real cool. Now, some of that might be a bias because the character is probably my favorite combiner. But all in all, just the overall presence of this guy, I think, turned out great. The addition of the new hands and feet really did help this guy out. It just makes him stand out and look that much cooler. Now, Computron here will be sold as a set. Much like Victorian, you can't buy the individual bots. But the good news is, he has started hitting various retail locations. So if you're looking for him, good luck and happy hunting. Or if you can't wait for him, he will be available at Big Bad Toy Store. And I do believe he'll be going up for sale at Big Bad Toy Store on August 15th. So all you have to do is click on the link down in the video description. You'll go to BBTS, where as I said, on August 15th, you should be able to pick this guy up and add him to your collection. But beyond that, guys, that's about it. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been Optibotimus. Don't forget that if you like this video, to please like and share it. Also, be sure to subscribe in case you haven't already subscribed. That way you never miss a future review of mine. And as always, until next time, I'll talk to you later.
You're at your best when the going gets rough.